The left hand. What's its structure, and how might it help or hinder a good violin hold? Let's dive deeper into this and see what's really under the skin. Hello, and welcome to the Wave Chinrest. In the first part of this series on knowledge and awareness, we looked at mobility and stability structures in the upper body. Now, let's look at what goes on in the left shoulder, arm, and hand to see if there's anything that might provide us with greater holding stability and perhaps even improve left hand function. Why the left hand? Well, it's extremely important to the violin hold because it attaches to the holding platform, the left shoulder. And any stresses or problems in the left hand can radiate right up through our arm to our torso, causing havoc with our efforts to balance the instrument. Now, one thing that we're not going to address is the idea of holding or not holding the violin with the left hand. That's an extremely personal decision and is intertwined with so many elements in playing that it should be examined by the individual player for their own individual preference. So, let's start with the left elbow. We have 3 joints in the elbow, and we'll concern ourselves with 2 of them. The humeral ulnar joint is the joint between the humerus, the upper arm bone, and the ulna, the forearm bone on the little finger side. And the humeral radial joint is the joint between the humerus and the radius bone, the one on your thumb side. The humeral ulnar joint does only this up and down motion, nothing else. And the humeral radial joint does the doorknob turn, or rotation motion. Now, we've come up to a problem. When putting the left hand into playing position, we often swing the elbow around under the violin. When we do that, we're attempting to rotate the humeral ulnar joint, a joint which, again, does not rotate. It only goes up and down. This forces the rotational motion up to the shoulder, meaning that you have to hold these muscles in the front in tension, and the muscles attaching to the shoulder blade, the rotator cuff muscles, are held in a state of hyperextension. Along with this shoulder tension can pull the shoulder forward to the rounding over position, called anterior tilt, which can in turn bring the head over to the left, bringing it way off its balance point, making a warped platform to hold the violin. And let's look at what this position actually does to the left hand. The little finger is now more perpendicular to the strings, actually reducing the stretch range. Now, if instead of keeping the thumb side still and rotating the little finger side around it, what if we kept the little finger side still and rotated the thumb side back, so that the axis is not on the thumb side and the radius bone, but on the little finger side and the ulnar bone? Now we're using the humeral radial joint, the proper joint for forearm rotation. This motion is done by one head of the biceps muscle with no shoulder movement involved, so the shoulder can be held in its neutral position. We can put our hand on the left shoulder and bicep and feel the shoulder muscles remaining relaxed while the bicep does the work. The muscles in the front and back of the shoulder can adopt their natural positions, avoiding damage. The elbow can be set in more of a natural neutral position instead of being thrust forward, and the fingers are now more parallel to the strings, allowing for greater range and stretch. Intonation, shifting, vibrato can all improve, along with the holding of the violin, by first looking at how the body works, second, what physical motions we need to interact with the instrument, and third, seeing if there might be an alignment between those two, so that we're not fighting our physical structures and rhythms to play, but are employing them, so that we're not violating any rules of body mechanics, but are utilizing them for easeful playing. So this one change can drastically naturalize the shelf for the violin, giving it a better shape, ease, and flexibility, as well as place the left hand in a truly natural position to accomplish its tasks with a minimum of artificiality. And for reaching up into position, or for going up on the G or C strings, we can temporarily swing the elbow forward and then allow it to fall back into its neutral position when we're done playing up there. Also, to reach the lower strings, all we would need would be maybe just a slight rotation of the shoulder, a slight elevation of the hand, and a slight extra rotation here to reach that position. Now, you may ask, where then does the thumb go? Does it go behind the first finger since we've rotated the thumb side back, or can it stay farther forward if you wish? Again, this is a really tricky question, and we'll address it later. Now, to the structure of the left hand itself. For the bones, we have the carpal bones, which form the wrist. Notice that the wrist bones are actually in the hand and act not as a hinge, but more of a bendy straw. In the body of the hand, we have the metacarpals, and in the fingers, we have the phalanges, noting that the finger bones begin not at the webbing of the hand, but at the joints, rather deep within the hand. We can feel these bones and joints by finding the middle metacarpal and going down until we reach the little bump. That's where the wrist begins. Go up the other way until we reach the knuckle, and that's where the fingers begin. With this, we can see that the hand, as defined by the actual hand bones, is really quite small. Now for muscles, the hand and fingers are moved by a bunch of muscles, including the flexor and extensor muscles in the forearm. In the hand itself, we have the thenar and adductor pollicis muscles on the thumb side, which mainly draw the thumb over to the little finger, with the exception of one muscle which pulls the thumb up in a hitchhiker position. And in the pinky side, we have the hypothenar muscles, which mainly draw the pinky over to the thumb, with the exception of one muscle, which again points the pinky straight off to the side. In the interior of the hand, we have interosseous muscles, which run along the sides of the hand bones and attach at either end. On the underside, we have the palmar interosseous muscles, which pull the fingers together, and on the top, we have the dorsal interosseous muscles, which pull the fingers apart side to side. Finally, on the underside of the palm, we have the lumbrical muscles, which pull the fingers down. Now, the side-to-side interosseous muscles are relatively weak and ill-positioned to execute a lot of finger activity. The strongest and best-positioned muscles in the hand bring us to this motion, where the third and fourth fingers collapse forward, which works well with holding the elbow more in its neutral position and using the natural arm rotation, as the first and second fingers can more or less face you, and the third and fourth fingers can wrap around the axis point, completing the rotation to the fingerboard. So the hand is not an immobile square object, but is extremely malleable and stretchy forward and back, with the movement initiating not at the base knuckles, but all the way down at the wrist, giving us much more swing in the fingers than if we map the finger activity as coming from the base knuckles and a side-to-side expansion of the hand. Why is this important? Well, for two reasons. One, it's always a good idea to use the body's natural mechanics, especially in a stress-intensive activity such as violin playing. And two, the usage of the left hand backs up all the way to the shoulder, creating a base for either stress-free holding or a really unnatural platform for the instrument. Now, for awareness, and that earlier thumb placement question. That really falls into the realm of the fourth video, but we'll give a sneak peek at it now. We often have violin holds that work for some people, but not all. If something feels uncomfortable, we often just ignore the pain and endure it. But if we can develop motions and holds that produce a baseline level of comfortability and ease, then we can explore the finer points of what fits our individual bodies without fear of coming up against some pretty bad pain. And this is where the awareness really comes in. Using your body in a truly natural way will allow it to find its own rhythms and positions, and you'll be able to ask your body if, for instance, it would like the left thumb to be slightly farther back or slightly higher, etc., remembering that each player's positions will be different as we have different shapes, muscle lengths, tendon laxity, and so forth. Developing a good knowledge of natural motion and then a good sense of awareness will allow you to ask these finer questions and listen to your body for feedback, determining whether a position has more or less resistance, pain, and so forth. You'll find your body actually teaching you what position it wants to assume. So for that question of where the thumb should go, we're setting up a situation where you can ask your thumb where it wants to sit and where you can be comfortable enough to listen for the answer. And it will present the correct answer to you if you listen. So these are some ideas for the left hand. I know it's been a big slog through a huge amount of information, and my thanks for staying through all of it. But it really is so important for us to know these. If we're going to play violin or viola, we really should be experts on what goes on under the skin, and also know how to use that expert knowledge. Next time, we'll look at shoulder rest usage and configurations that might allow for a more organic relationship with the instrument, following an easier technique and a more natural, unconscious way to hold the violin. Thanks so much for watching. I'd be thrilled to help you with your own violin holding needs. Visit wavechinrest.com for much more information at the site. Do check out the other videos we have, and I'm happy to do free video chat consultations to assist you in finding your own place of comfort on the violin. Liking and subscribing would really help us out, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.